I try to notice that.
What's
Clean up a little bit, I mean, Tim clean shave every night too.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
Mustache been trimmed, hair up, cleaned up a little bit. See, I appreciate that because I read lips. I have a hearing issue and I do a lot of lip reading. And if a man has a mustache,
We are live.
comes down over his lips, it's very difficult for me to. It's really difficult.
Nope.
So,
I got a call and we didn't answer, so, yeah. Nope. So, Council President Pro Tem, it's your show.
is that right?
That's
Well,
it.
I would stand and say pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But should I move over there or is it coming? Yeah.
We thought it was, but.
Yeah, earlier what I spoke to it was.
All right, call meeting to order. Everyone.
I apologize. Mayor Luma, Nichols,
Here.
Walty,
Here.
Weingartner, here, and Ball.
Okay,
Oh,
the
I'm
minutes.
Sorry.
Okay,
No,
sorry.
Bob, are you here?
See,
Oh, I see you.
Bob, okay, so Bob's here. The minutes, the only thing I had, Sarah, was my name was misspelled on page 2. Again, it's the autocorrect will misspell it every time.
Oh, that's sorry,
Okay, thank you. Fiscal officer report.
We have $1,508,292.27 in all the funds, and we have $188,290.06 in the general fund. And I also had a report, we discussed the state auditor, the findings for the non-cash payments. And, we went over that together, and when I talked to the auditor, they did, tell me that it's a regular occurrence, it does happen to a lot of villages, but what we need is an actual council adopted policy, which is also included in that to perform that adjustment, when those things arise. So when it does happen, we won't get deemed on the audit. We already have something in place.
So we can put this 23-5 ordinance under old business or new business, how do you want to handle that? It's a ordinance, we'll put that under new business, and we'll come back to 23-5, an ordinance regarding non-cash payments, so that we can do that.
I'd say that's where it should be,
That's where it should go. No guests, committee reports. I'm sorry, bills. We need to,
I'll make a motion to pay the bills presented.
Okay. Roll call, Sarah, can we get a chance?
Sorry. Miller,
Here.
Ball,
Oh, yeah.
Nichols,
Sorry.
Yes,
Walty,
Here.
Weingartner.
yes, well, Jane, yes, sir, here.
Yes, here, whatever. I'm reading here.
Positive.
Okay, we don't have any guests, so we'll move on to committee reports. We can start with finance. Was there a finance committee meeting?
No.
Okay. I think the next one in line was utilities. No utilities meeting. There was no records meeting. We did have a zoning meeting, and we're just continuing to work. I didn't get up with council. We're just continuing to work on the document, but we are making pretty good progress and moving forward. I want to thank Aaron for coming to the meeting and participating. I think having him there as village administrator and as zoning inspector is helpful. We can certainly help have extra eyes on that document so that we get it correctly moving forward. Police report.
I'm gonna speak up because that mower is loud, and I'm not sure how it's gonna pick up on camera. I just spoke to the mayor, he's on his way from Lima, so he will be here late, but he should be here. Property Maintenance Committee updates, you can see on your report the updates are highlighted. The 205 East Mulberry Street did not pay the amount owed to the village, so the fiscal officers filed the paperwork to assess the property taxes. And I want to give an update on 202 Karen Street, which is over here just south of the school. We've spoken about this in the past. It really hasn't been on the PMC report because it had been titled in probate, but I wanted to give an update on that. You can see there that the issue is the amount of money owed to the bank is more than the projected value. This is probably going to be a long-term problem. So if the village tries enforcement, which the executor of the estate said, feel free to do that, but it's kind of squeezing blood out of a turnip type situation. He said it could be a lot of years before the cost could be recovered because the reality is, there's still many thousands of dollars owed on the property. It's only worth X amount of dollars, and it's not going to offset. So whoever the new owner of the property will be responsible for that. So the cost of removing the mobile home from that property, which is what the village would probably have to do, is probably going to be fairly expensive.
That's
so,
the mobile home, man?
That's the mobile home where they were living in the garage area,
Yeah.
current transition out of the house. The mobile is completely filled, though. I spoke with the executor, who's Greg Hawk, and he said, Nathan, you can barely get in the door, and then you take a few steps and feel like you're going to fall through the floor of the mobile. So it's not safe, but I had sent him a tall grass notice, and I'll talk about that later, but he had said basically it's a mess. It's a nightmare because he didn't realize until he was given the task of trying to execute the estate how much money was still owed and all that kind of stuff. So that's unfortunately going to be a problem long term for the village.
There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. And Jeff's not here to ask that.
I mean, we
Because
can.
it's a health and safety issue.
Yeah. No, I don't think the answer is there's nothing we can do. I think we can do something. It's going to be a fairly large upfront cost for us, to go through that process initially. I think the attorney would, I don't want to speak for the attorney, but recovering those costs is going to take several years, because even if the property gets through probate and they sell it for, say, $10,000 and there's still $50,000 owed, then the money that is sold through an auction or what sheriff's sale, what have you, is not going to recover the costs owed to us. And then there's questions as to who's responsible for any liens, and I assume whoever took ownership of the new property would be responsible for that. But
I would think I don't know, you guys chime in too, I would think that if we tore it down and we assessed the property taxes like we did with this garage, or going to do with this garage, that whoever ultimately buys the property would be responsible for the taxes.
I would think so. Given that it's currently in probate, you're absolutely right. I think the attorney needs to have some feedback on that, because I'd hate for us to get down a rabbit hole and then find out that we ultimately have to eat that cost. But it is definitely a health and safety hazard. I mean, there's no question about that.
At the village, Joe, one thing we can control is absolutely make sure the water's turned off, and absolutely no way to get out.
Yeah, I think it's disconnected
Yeah,
from.
one thing is, but
we
somebody comes
would.
along and say,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Flag that.
Yeah, and there hasn't been utilities to that trailer portion in a long time. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Maybe I get $10,000 for that property. Maybe
I
I get $5,000 for
Probably the only way they'd sell it, to be honest, is if we tore everything down, it took everything off, and it was an empty lot,
yeah.
and somebody would buy it as an empty lot.
Well,
Otherwise, they'd probably have to give it to somebody.
I can tell you the last time I was in the portion that they lived in the garage portion, that actually was not a decent, or was not a bad property on the inside of the garage turned living space. They kept it fairly clean, and it was decent, but they used the trailer as a storage facility, and by just throwing stuff, by throwing their stuff in there. I mean, it wasn't in any rhyme or reason. It's bad. You can drive down there and look in the windows and see.
It might fall apart. I might try to pick it up.
It is likely that would happen. Okay, moving on. On Friday, May the 5th, I was asked to set up a booth for the second Waynesfield Goshen Schools Career Fair. Middle school and high school students were able to ask questions to a sheriff's deputy and me about law enforcement during the fair. There were roughly 50 careers represented. Coming up on May the 21st, WG will honor the class of 2023 at a graduation ceremony. As per the School Resource Officer Agreement, I will be working that. The final day of school for all other students is Wednesday, May the 24th at 1 p.m. So then summer break will begin at that point in time. The May primaries were held on May 4th. The local precincts were in the WG Board of Education building, and there were no issues. There was actually only one issue to be voted on, but there were no issues from anyone going in there. Very, very low key, actually. Mayor Luma and I attended the Waynesfield Baptist Church's installation for its newest pastor, Todd Tenaya. Mayor Luma spoke during the service. I will be meeting with Pastor Tenaya in the future to discuss some community issues and ways we can work together for the community's benefit, much like Pastor Don and I work together and the Methodist Church pastors as they've come through. Just getting contact information in the event that something happens to where they're needed to be contacted when they're not in the office, that type of thing. So I did meet Pastor Tenaya. He's a very nice guy. For those of you who don't know, he lives very close to our building here, so he's easily accessible. No. The community development team meets this Wednesday, so I'll have an update at the June meeting. I do just want to reiterate that I'm excited about some possibilities that we've discussed. However, stay tuned as I will have actual information in a future council meeting. Some additional updates. Construction. Most, if not everyone, cannot wait for it to be completed. We've received a few complaints of people driving on the path, like I mentioned last month, and most of the recent complaints are people driving the path to and from Dollar General. I've also had some complaints of the four-way intersection at Copeland and the alley, the north-south alley, people not stopping for those stop signs. I actually sat down there today and gave some reminders to those folks, and moments after I left, the person that made the complaint called me again and said, or he sent me a message and said, as soon as you left here, there were 4 more that did it. So I'll be sitting down there in the near future and hitting that a little bit harder. Council did pass an ordinance several years ago making alley stop signs regulatory stop signs, so we can actually issue citations on that if needed. So we'll be looking at that. Hopefully that won't be as much of an issue in the next couple weeks. I'm sure the administrator will talk about that as far as getting that project finished. Tall grass warnings, multiple notices have been mailed out. For those of you that might not remember, tall grass is anything 12 inches or taller. Any grass 12 inches or taller, you can be served a notice. After that notice, then the village the police department can either issue citations and or the village mow the property at a rate of $200 an hour with a minimum 1 hour and $5 a gallon per fuel with a minimum of 1 gallon used. So it'd be a $205 bill right off the bat if they have to do that. Most of the properties that have been served notices have mowed. We've got a couple vacant properties that the village may have to take care of. So we've also mailed out several grass and roadway warnings. I have 4 to 6 in parentheses there. It's been closer to 10 to 12. I sent some more out over this past weekend. You don't have that, okay. Well, I have in my notes that I had about 4 to 6, and we've sent out about 10. I sent out about 10 to 12, just reminding people they need to not do that. And if they do it in the future, then the fines start out at $125 per offense. So we will be looking for that. And you know, with that, the grass and the roadways, we're looking for obvious offenders. If there's, you know, a little bit of I've been questioned, well, what constitutes a violation? If there's a little bit of grass that overshoots, that's one thing. It's when you throw an entire row and you're pointing your mower out into the road and intentionally blowing it out. That's the type of situation we're running to. And I did put a social media post out about that. And you know, the big thing, I know a lot of people get tied into it's dangerous for motorcycles, which is true. But for us here locally, it's more so that grass gets down into our storm sewer system and clogs it up and creates a big problem. So, and that's kind of what I've been telling people. Look, help us out. Push it back away from the road so we can have water flowing like it should be. The Waynesfield American Legion Memorial Day Parade is slated to be May 29th. The parade will be the normal route from the American Legion to the Willow Branch Cemetery. Since the road is slated to be open, the Legion applied for and was granted that application. that they do every year. And I have two more things. I was called in this past Saturday at approximately 12:43 p.m. to assist the Auglaize County Sheriff's Office with an escaped inmate. I was one of the first of approximately 18 different entities that responded to the incident. We worked until about 11:45 p.m. in trying to locate the subject, and at that time the search was suspended. Yesterday morning, however, around 8:25 a.m., the subject was located and apprehended in St. Mary's after a brief foot pursuit. What impressed me most about this incident was how well all of our state and local agencies worked together. We actually had some federal partners that were involved as well. With that many entities, especially on different radio frequencies and things like that, it's kind of hard to work together, but we were able to get that done. And while we did locate him on Saturday, like I said, he was located on Sunday. He is back in jail, probably under a lot more supervision than he was before. And I'll leave you, the last thing I have is this week is National Police Week, where law enforcement across the nation honor and remember those law enforcement officers who made the ultimate sacrifice, as well as the family members, friends, and fellow officers they left behind. In 2022 alone, 224 officers were killed in the line of duty. We are encouraging residents to light Ohio blue by replacing their porch light with a blue light and turning it on this week as a way to honor and remember those officers that died, as well as offer support to law enforcement. Now, in the past, the village has had blue lights that we would sell on behalf of Auglaize County Lift Back to Blue. We're not doing that this year, but anyone that wants a blue light can go to Lowe's or any home convenience store, what have you, and buy a blue light and place it in their security light, however they'd like. And we just ask for them to do that if they want to support us.
Thank you, Nathan. Village Administrator's report?
Well, all right, we'll just hop on the electric side of things. I don't know if anybody's drove down it. It gets dark so late now. All the Southwest Minster Street lights have been changed to LED, so it'll be curious to see in the next couple of months go off of last year on the kilowatts hours that we used and see how much savings were there. So that was all that was done in-house. Just waiting on a letter from AMP to go talk to the Moyer Road folks and let them know what we found and what we feel is the fix for that issue. The other thing was we have a second reading for that interconnection.
Yeah, that'll come under old business.
We're going to do business. Okay.
We'll see that under
All right.
old business. That's
Oh.
what it would be.
Water and sewer, the only thing that's really happening there is just waiting on the part for the lagoon for the overflow through the project. West Walpole Street, they started, all the curbs have been poured, the sidewalks, they've started, got a pretty good start on the sidewalks. South side, hoping the week of the 15th, which is this week, to get done, but they also have blacktop, the base being put in this Wednesday, so they have to work with the blacktoppers to try and make sure nobody's in each other's way. One thing that was brought up with Craig, by the time we get the project to where stuff's ready to seed grass, it's going to be pretty late. Normally you don't plant grass seed in June, just because it gets so hot, and the only good grass is if it's watered. So he would like to push that off till mid to end of August. It'll just be a better stand. You know, the folks, they'll just have to maintain what weeds are there. It'll all be leveled. It won't be big chunks of dirt, but it'll be leveled and tilled.
How much soil erosion will we lose by not having anything on it?
They'll keep it lower so it shouldn't erode, but if it does, they'll come back and clean the curbs and put more dirt in when they go to seed.
We won't sign off on it until that's.
Correct, yeah. We probably won't sign off on it until the grass is grown and established.
Now, do we hold any money for,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
10%?
It's either 10 or 15%.
Okay.
Yeah. And usually that has to go the whole year. On that.
Can
So
we
it gets
suggest
way
that-
later.
Can we suggest that people plant flowers?
You don't really want anything planted in it because you're not be able to plant seed.
Whatever you plant, it'll have to be sprayed.
You know, have to be pulled in.
Well, yeah, and that comes at a cost to somebody versus.
The homeowners would do that.
Yeah. It'll be a short time, you know. I think Nathan we can kind of go at ease with folks that have some weed issues.
Oh, yeah.
Where the dirt is, it's not like we'll go and hit them because the weeds are grown, because we know it's not a finished project. So as far as that goes, I think that's the best way to move forward with it, because I've tried to plant grass seed and it just doesn't work. Even if you straw it, you'd have to water it every other day unless you have a wet June to get established, so. Waiting on the next pay application, I just got that today, didn't have time to look over it, but between that and we need to get the quote in for the water tower to know how much money we'll have left over of the project to see what other streets we can pave. I did talk to Craig on a couple of them, give him a list of streets based off of our street inventory list that we have. We based everything off of that. I gave him 4 or 5 streets, just so he knew to start doing some quantities on it, and then we'll see once where we're at from there.
You talking access engineering?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I do have a question, across the street from me, sidewalk there. Why was the reason putting the manhole in the sidewalk?
We had to move it to get away from that telephone pole. Well, the telephone pole and the edge of the road.
But couldn't we move it more in and out?
It would have taken 2 or 3 more fittings.
Yes, but, I think that it's safety.
It should be all right. It should be just like a manhole in a road. It shouldn't raise.
No, I don't mean that, I don't want to say about giving people ideas, but vandalism, people not paying attention, walking,
Mm-hmm.
falling,
Yeah.
Is there a way to lock that manhole so it can be taken off?
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
That would be, would that address the issue, Tim?
Yeah, I think so, as long as it's
Okay.
not.
You're concerned somebody pops the lid off and then nobody knows they're walking. Yeah, that's not an issue. I know before in curbs, and sidewalks, more so sidewalk, we've had curb boxes and or manholes just because sometimes they can't be moved on kind of elevation.
Mhm.
But yeah, we can make so that's tamper-proof, if you
Yeah,
will.
that's my most concern.
Mhm. I think that's all on the project as we're moving forward. As far as the park, a couple of things. We did enlarge the parking lot to the north out of gravel spoils that they dug out of the road. And I just had them put the beauty mound out there for the time being. They may need some of that dirt. Otherwise, we'll either seed that, have them seed that beauty mound there, or we'll haul that back to our stockpile.
I think all the dirt's on my part.
You might need more. The other thing was the entrance to the park from the east. I did put, and nothing's to scale on this, just kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like. The blue line on there would be the width widening of the road. It's about 5 more feet. That would give 2 lanes of passage. And also semis coming in for deliveries for us or whatnot would open that up. I've talked to Deegan, they'd be happy to do the work. We could do the demo and the preliminary work in-house, and they would just come in and do the concrete work and do the blacktop paving. While we would be doing that, we'll see once they start milling West Walpole Street. Once we see how much grinding we'll have, we could potentially make that parking lot that much bigger. That's the orange.
That will be the whole
The whole orange thing, yeah.
But one back corner, far corner of that.
That's already been widened,
Okay.
about 25 feet to the north, and then they went and moved, they had more gravel, so they went and moved that mound again. So there's potential that will be another 20 feet. So we'll gain about 40 feet of the parking lot.
That should help. Then once we get that part, that drive to widen too.
Yeah, I talked to
That's a mess.
Brian Shaw, and he said it definitely helped with
Very
the functioning of the
yeah.
park.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing the park needs, and we're able to have it, is parking. And with having the asphalt grinding to the road base, being able to dig that out and put that in, I think now's a perfect time to do that. The only thing that we'll need to address if and when we do this parking lot and when the other parking lot's done is either parking blocks around it or posts or something, so folks just don't, they have a direction, they have an in and out, that they don't just go through the grass or whatnot. So, I'll,
how will that look then? I mean, it looks like there might be, what direction and all are they gonna know how to park?
Well, that's when you need to put parking blocks down and/or you can paint lines, but you don't have to paint lines all the time because it's gravel. But most generally, you just line parking blocks up to where people know to pull up to those parking blocks.
So how is this gonna enlarge parking? I'm just trying to vision.
Well, just on the extra, what that orange is showing, I'm guessing on the square footage is probably another 15 to 20 cars would be in the
Yeah.
parking lot.
So there would be maybe even a middle area?
Yes, yeah, you'd put the parking blocks in, you do the math and just figure what makes the most sense. If you put them on an angle or if they're just, if you have 3 rows straight and you have parking on both sides of those and you still have enough to back out to go around. And the same thing would probably be done at the other one, because you're right, if you don't have a direction or a way for them to know to park, somebody's gonna park smack dab in the middle, and then everybody's gotta work around them, so.
They, if you go down and watch most of these start the summer, they do a pretty good job of parking in the right way, and they get a lot more cars there. They're doing a pretty good job of it, when I'm down there.
That's the question is, how much gonna cost?
This year, I don't know. The blacktop, it'll be whatever the unit price is through Deegan, and then the concrete price those are 2 numbers that they're gonna give me. I just have to paint that out and give them quantities.
Now, what would the concrete be?
So where the approach is, the radius,
Okay.
you'll pull that back 5 feet. Actually, the radius is probably back further than that.
Will they have to redo the whole approach?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll actually be doing
The radius of the curve and the approach of the sidewalk.
on both sides?
Just the south side.
South side, okay, yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just the south side, because there's not much room on the north side with the Veterans Park right there. And if you look as you pull in there, there's a valve box and a fire hydrant on the south side. We want to be careful we don't get too close to that, so if somebody do pull in, they don't hit that. So that's where the 5 foot of the road width, and then the same radius on the curb. And then, yeah, the sidewalk would have to have the pedestrian crosswalk portion put in it.
I think that's a good idea, I just not interested in how much it's gonna be.
Yeah. And then the only other thing, Justin, you called me the other night with the slide issue at the park. There's one slide out there that is plastic, and it's the enclosed one. At the bottom it has a landing when it comes out, so you just don't dump on the ground. Well, in that landing, there's a spot that's cracked, probably 6 inches wide, and probably 10, 12 inches long, and another 6 inches wide, and it's folded down. There's really no way to fix it. You can't just put bolts in it, because then you're gonna have bolt heads sticking up and whatnot. So we called the company that we got that from, and they're like, we sold you the same one in 2016. It had broke. So they called back and said that they discontinued that slide.
No kidding.
So they said they're supposed to get prices for, they might be able to retrofit and put a whole new portion in. We're also looking into a plastic welder, just take it off and have it plastic welded and then grind it down so it's smooth. So there's a couple options, but as it is right now, there is a piece of plywood screwed to the top so they can't slide down. They can still go up from the bottom, but
Say, they'll climb up, you might need to close the bottom off too.
yeah, and maybe we just take a section out.
Yeah,
They're about 18
You
inches,
can't buy that, just that one section.
because they discontinued that one. Now, that was the company
Just like anything else.
that
you
it
gotta
comes
buy
from.
the
That's
same
not
thing.
saying
Yeah.
we can't look to see at other companies that have a retrofit or something of that sort.
Aaron, if you took the bottom section off, what would the drop off be though?
It would be about the same height, but it would be straight to the ground instead of, a flat
I just know from experience with my
A
grandchildren,
couple of feet, wasn't it?
they don't like sliding, they wanna climb up it,
Mhm.
and then they slide down it.
Mhm.
And so if it's a drop off, I think we create a safety hazard.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, I would be concerned for my grandchildren, to be honest.
Mhm.
Can we just close that up some way
Yeah,
until we get it
the other
fixed?
end of it also.
Yeah, because kids are just gonna climb up and then slide back down and they get hurt.
Well, the bottom that's broke actually has, that's the anchor point, but the next section is a full circle. You might be able to take a full circle out and put plywood, so they could still let me see how it's mounted.
Yeah.
If we can just take that portion down and just put a piece of plywood on the bottom
I
and
guess
around. part.
any way we can prevent them from getting inside that thing, either end, I think is the only way
Yeah.
that we can be safe.
Yeah.
Just kids,
I saw something on Facebook, where this mother was complaining and warning people about a slide where the part of the clothes got caught and
Oh,
the
really?
kid was, you know.
Yeah.
So is there any possibility of that happening?
not right now.
No.
Tops.
I mean, if they, kids are kids, they can be screwing up and get all the way up and come back down. I think if we just make sure they can't go up it from the bottom.
I think we just need to make sure if it's broke, that they can't get in either from the top or the bottom,
Yeah.
just to be safe, until we can get it fixed.
So I'll get some prices since we know what that parking lot will look like now. I'll get some prices to Deegan on the asphalt.
Now, the parking lot, is that part of their price going to be, or is that something we can do in-house? The parking lot stuff,
We'll do it in-house.
okay?
Yes. We
So
can
their quote would just be,
to fill in what we take out.
okay,
Yeah, it would be them putting blacktop back in, because they've got a 4-foot roller, and it's here, and they've got all the concrete tools and everything, so we could do all the demo work and the prep work, and then they just come in and lay the asphalt and then pour the concrete, or vice versa.
So Aaron, you mentioned, road repair, that you were working with Access. Do you have any time frame on when we're gonna know what we're gonna do this year in terms of roadways within the village?
So they just put in their second pay app, Deegan did, so once Craig dropped it off today, so he'll go through that, I'll go through that, make sure everything lines up, and then he can go back on the second pay app, and then he'll know how much money's left in as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing that is a question mark right now is the water tower. He's been waiting for them to come back from Florida,
So we need a bid for that.
get a bid for that, and then we'll know. He thought, he was thinking that we would have enough to do at least a couple streets, even with adding the extra water line and everything else.
And what's your thought in terms of monies, if you do the park issue with the road? What was your thought on where that would come from?
I was really going to look at streets. Just either take it out of the street fund, because there's money allocated there, or see how much is left in the project.
Okay. I guess I'll express my concern. I think widening that is a wonderful idea. You know, it probably needs to be done, but we have streets that people can't even hardly drive on, and if we have said now, since the beginning of this project, that any excess money we had was going to go to repair streets within the village. I don't feel comfortable saying now we're gonna take that away to do an
Right.
expansion in the park. So, I understand they're here, it's probably going to be cheaper if we can do it now. But I think there are roadways in the village that need,
Oh, most definitely. And we'll see what those numbers are. I just want to bring it in front of council to see what it look like, and that all depends on where dollars are. Get the quote, see once how much it'll cost, and then, reallocated in appropriations for streets. It might be covered under that, and that wouldn't even be touching anything that we was going to have the overage for on out of the project to get all into pedestrian streets.
thank you. Mayor's report, I'm gonna take over, you want me to continue?
Go ahead.
Okay, mayor's report's next then. We're moving that down to old business. That's old business, so we'll move it down to old business. So mayor's report's next.
Mayor's Court report,
Mayor's.
page 122 is deposited in the Journal Fund for Mayor's Court for the account for the month of April.
Okay, under old business, we need to have the second reading of ordinance 23-4-1, an ordinance regarding the interconnectivity contracts. So I would entertain a motion to have the second reading of that.
I'll make a motion to have the second reading of the ordinance 23-4-1.
Have a second? Would be roll call?
Fall,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walty.
yes,
Okay, also your old business, I have a few things, the audit report, one of the things that, let me get my notes here. I thank, Sarah for being diligent in finding out about non-cash payments, and when we get to new business, we'll take care of that. On page 4, number 5, capital assets. Aaron, have you had any time or anything to, any thought about doing the inventory and how we're going to do that?
A little bit, my thought was, the biggest thing, we need to probably sit down and know the dollar amount to go down to. You know, anything above this is where we start. You would said something about 80%.
Right, the OAC 17-2-02 says that the village has to establish a capital asset threshold policy that captures 80% of your capital assets. So we would probably need guidance from you about what that dollar amount would be, because certainly we don't want to go $100, we gotta advertise, you know, inventory, things that, it's gonna give us 95% instead of 80.
Right. And that's just on equipment per se, not buildings, correct? Or is that?
No, capital assets is everything.
Okay.
That would be, to me, if I'm correct, in a personal thing, it would be real and property. Any asset of value. So, yeah, it would be everything.
Okay. My thought there is, you know, with the property and the equipment that we have, I honestly think that $2,500 is a good starting point. And then we can see where that's at. I mean, you've got all kind, I mean, one fire hydrant is $3,500. We don't have a brand new one, we have old ones for replacements. So, you know, those are worth putting on there, but we have 50 3/4 inch stiffeners that are 50 cents a piece, you know.
Right,
So
yeah.
as a whole, we could probably put water, parts, and equipment as a whole in there and grab that stuff. And if we needed to go further than that, but I really think that's gonna grab that 80%, if not more, on that dollar amount.
So, what we need to do then as a, let me look here, capital assets.
Does that include property?
Yes. Yes.
Does it include like light poles and?
Anything the village owns of value of $2,500, or if we would pass an ordinance or resolution that said our capital asset threshold policy is any capital asset valued at $2,500 or greater would have to be on that inventory. Then if a light pole is $2,500, then it's on the inventory. Okay, so that's what it is. But the audit says, let's see, let me find page 4, item 5. The village should develop and implement a capital asset policy that establishes at a minimum a capitalization threshold and useful lives, and should maintain an adequate and detailed record of capital assets owned by the village as required by Ohio Administrative Code. So it's a policy, and Jeff's not here. I don't know if we need a resolution, probably, or if Rodney as mayor needs to write a policy and we need to approve it. But we need to have something in place that says this is our capital asset threshold is $2,500, and the inventory needs to have X, Y, Z things on it, so.
Probably best to have it be a resolution. That way it has language in it, and then to follow would have everything that falls in that category.
So should we just table it to next month then?
Well,
The writing by Jeff, what his wording would be?
I mean, I won't kid you, this is a big project, it's a long process.
It's gonna be a long process.
So, to say whether we need to have a resolution tonight or next month, I mean, we know what we need to be looking at. I don't know, to satisfy auditors, is that just something we, as long as we have it by next audit?
Well, I think, yeah, I think, you know, the question becomes, I mean, I looked at it from this standpoint, to be honest with you guys. We had, what, $3.4 or $3.5 million in appropriations this year. So we know that we've got those things we're going to expend on, but can anyone in this room, as we sit here today, say what the value of our assets are right now? And where are they? And if one of them goes up missing, how do we know it's missing? Other than we don't have a lawnmower anymore. We don't have that protection.
Is there any way we can, this is not the right word, but partition some of his labor with us taking portions of things?
Well, I think there's lots of ways, and I don't want to micromanage how Aaron gets this job done. But certainly, council could assist with that. You know, winter is a good time to work through these kinds of projects. But the reality is, and Chief Motter goes through his inventory, even what he does doesn't really capture everything they're saying. We need to know what the life expectancy is of something, what the value, you even mentioned, if we have a backhoe, which I think we do have some kind of
A mini excavator.
mini excavator, and its life maybe it lives for 25 years, but at 15 years we start putting so much money into it, we really need, that's the optimal time to sell it. So that kind of information is what needs to be in an inventory.
Yeah, you know, I think if you build your inventory list first, then from your inventory list, you can make your equipment rotation list on there.
I guess I would say, I would entertain that we make a motion to pass a resolution to establish a capital asset threshold of $2,500. We can do that as first reading tonight, and then Jeff could draft the ordinance in the way it should be. Then as part of that, we begin working to develop basically a spreadsheet that says, you know, this is the asset, this was when it was purchased, this is what its life expectancy was, or this is how much it costs, and yada, yada, yada. We could either establish an ad hoc committee, or we could work with Aaron in some way to come up with that template that could be then filled in by all departments. And that would include the police department and, you know, that sort of thing. So I guess I would entertain a motion to establish a capital asset threshold of $2,500 based on your recommendation.
I make a motion that we make a capital asset
Threshold
resolution
policy.
and the threshold would be, I think you said that, $2,500.
Resolution.
Second.
This resolution 2351.
And that probably should have gone under new business, but
Nichols,
we'll go ahead and do it.
We need to establish a resolution first, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
We need to establish a resolution on the first one.
The number
oh,
of the
2351, sorry.
23-5-1.
Mhm.
You'll mention that, so she got that.
Oh, it's 23
Got it. Thank you very much.
Feeling like good.
So you said Tim, okay.
Nathan's doing lots of note taking over here.
So we did the ordinance within that.
Are you-
So
Need a vote for that.
we need a roll call.
Paul,
She started. Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walty,
Yes.
Weingartner.
Yes.
Okay, then we'll move to new business. We have an ordinance would be 23-5-2, an ordinance, or resolution to hire Jay Carter as a seasonal employee for the village of Waynesfield and to declare an emergency. Is there a time frame on this, Aaron?
May 30th is when he can start.
And is there an ending?
Would be when he goes back to school. He is a junior going to be a senior.
Okay, okay. And his rate would be $13 an hour?
Yeah.
So I'll need a motion for that resolution.
I'll make a motion, a resolution, to hire Jay Carter as a seasonal employee for the village of Waynesfield and declare an emergency for the period of May 30th to the start of school.
Only to the end of August.
I think you need to suspend the rules of 3 readings first.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, we need to declare, suspend the rules, we need.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rule of 3 readings.
I'll second.
Ball,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes,
Miller,
Yes.
Walsey,
Yes.
Weinberger.
And I'll make a motion to hire Jay Carter as a seasonal employee for the village of Waynesfield for the period of May 30th to the start of school.
I'll second.
need a roll call?
Ball,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walsey,
Yes.
Weinberger.
All right, under new business, then we have an ordinance, ordinance 23-5, I believe it would be 1. An ordinance to establish a written process for non-cash payments, and we need to declare an emergency to do this, so we would need a motion first to declare an emergency and suspend the rule of 3 readings.
I'll make a motion to declare emergency, suspend the rule of 3 readings.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Ball,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes,
Miller,
Yes.
Walsey,
Yes.
Weinberger.
Yes.
okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 23-5-1. An ordinance to establish a written process for non-cash payments and declaring
Second.
period.
Ball,
Mhm.
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walsey,
Yes.
Weinberger.
The only thing I would say, Sarah, is ordinance is misspelled on this document, so we probably should correct that in the header.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, under new business, I'm back to, we didn't discuss this in the audit, but the other thing that was in the audit was timely deposits of mayor court receipts. And, that was on page 10. And I guess my question is, evidently, during this audit period between 20 and 21, in 2025, out of 11 receipts that were tested, 45% were not deposited to the bank within 3 business days. And in 2021, 5 of 9, or 55% of the receipts tested were not deposited within 3 business days after the initial receipt of money. My question is, do we have a policy and a procedure for deposits of mayor court's money to guarantee that we're meeting that 3-day time frame?
Be a great question for the mayor's court clerk. And I'm sure if I asked her to be present at the next meeting, as long as she's not tied up down in Russell's Point, she would be more than happy to address that, because I don't have a clue.
But it is, I'm assuming, I mean, I know Diane is very much into the rules, but
Was there a response given on that? Did the village make a formal response to the state
No.
on that?
no, there was not a response.
So I'm not sure if she's even, with the transition and everything, I'm not sure she's even aware this came up in the audit. I don't want to speak for her, so, it would have, I mean, the mayor could have a conversation with her about that and see, what the appropriate response is. And I'm sure there is one.
And this was not a finding, this was under recommendations, but I think it's a valid recommendation because we want to, I don't think, my personal opinion is, and I hope that council would agree with me, that we shouldn't have cash money sitting around anywhere in here. It should be deposited as timely as it can be. It should meet that
Well,
requirement.
we have a policy currently in place for utility bills that anytime money, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but I think anytime we have cash in the amount of $1,000 or more, it must go to the bank that day. Or if we've held cash for 3 days or longer, no matter what the amount is. I mean, we have a baseline amount that we have at all times, so if somebody comes in and needs change, but after 3 days, there is an ordinance or policy or something in place, and it's been there for a really long time, but that's how that happens, because I know I make routine bank runs, Bina makes routine bank runs, to make sure that we're compliant with that.
I'm almost sure you're right, because otherwise they would have had that same thing for the utilities
Right.
in the audit, so.
Right.
Well, I think that we probably, as a council, I would like to see us have an answer to that, because obviously it's a ding, and it's something that we want to.
I will, either,
If she has an answer and you can relay it to you, she doesn't have to attend the meeting. I mean, you
Sure.
just need to know
sure,
that there's a policy in place and how it's handled.
yeah,
So is she handling that money then?
correct, she's on to handle it.
Yeah.
And then so when and I'm speaking in kind of a little out of left field because I don't know her job completely, but when she receives payment and processes the payment, then what happens is she will then give it to the either utility clerk or fiscal officer for deposit, and then it goes in a separate envelope or separate thing with the village's normal deposits, so then it's deposited in the same bank, separate accounts, so it can be accounted for. It could be something, and again, as I'm just thinking on the fly here, it could be something where we received a check, and the check was processed through the check reader, but they didn't actually have the physical check at the bank within 3 days, and that might be why.
It's saying deposits of public funds.
Right, so it could be a check, it could be,
When receipts tested were not deposited with the bank in 3 days after initial receipt of the monies.
right, so again, that would be something I'd have to talk to Diane about, and I'm certain she'll have some sort of an answer.
A high percentage of them probably ACHs, and that would go
Right.
right away, correct?
I can't speak on that process because I really don't know. When it comes to money through mayor's court, I am completely hands-off. I just write the tickets.
Right. So that's something. The other recommendation that is of concern also is a disaster recovery plan and data backup. We do not currently have an off-site data backup. So if something happens to this building, we lose everything.
With the cloud?
We don't have one, according to this. The village does maintain regular backups of computer data, but does not store the backup data off-site. Also, the village does not have a disaster recovery plan that identifies procedures to be performed for the village to continue processing information in the event of a disaster. And you know, that tornado that came through here, I don't even know that it was a mile away. If it had been a mile further this direction, the whole village would have been, and our building would have been one of the sites. So it's something that needs to be addressed.
Aaron and I have spoken with our IT person with regards to our backup systems. I will have to double check with him because I know we've implemented multiple backup. I don't know if now we have an offsite or if we still have a separate server for the backup. I was thinking that the backup went to the cloud, but I'm not totally certain on that, so we'll have to double check that. Yeah. As far as the disaster recovery plan, I would bet that there are many, many other municipalities that have those in place already that we could beg, borrow, and steal from to
Right.
implement something.
It's something we should address.
Because I actually am, okay, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if, that's something we can look at. And then the final item on the audit that is concerning to me, and Nathan, you're the police chief. Can you tell me where North 3rd Street is in this village?
We do not have North 3rd Street.
Then how do we have a loan for North 3rd Street?
Can't speak to that because we don't have a North 3rd Street.
We have an OPCW loan in the amount of $10,000 for 20 years for the repair or street construction of the North 3rd Street. This loan was entered into in 2019.
How can we, figure out the application when we apply for that? Don't they verify that, like if I want to say I'm going to do this, don't they verify what you're spending the money on?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a fiscal officer question, but I would, if we can't find it in our records, then I would have to question the auditor as to where they found that and what they're specifically referencing.
They have a loan number, CM08.
So that would be, you know, through Laura and Sarah, they would have to locate that information and determine what that is, because we do not have a North Third Street.
And when I looked into it a little bit, I'm wondering, and this doesn't make it right, but in the shuffle of things, if somebody at OPWC or wherever just put a wrong name in,
And that could be.
I mean, because when that was taken out, it was for a chunk of roads to be paved, and it was OPWC match on there. So it wasn't for a specific street. The way it sounded in that it was several different researchers of several different streets. So was it supposed to be number of 3 streets?
Right.
What you gave me, if that's what you're saying, is ordinance 16-10-2. And that it was, execute contracts with OPWC and Ohio Public Works for $70,000 with a 10% match and a 20-year loan at 0% interest in the amount of $10,000. But I guess I question how we can have a loan for a street we don't have.
Yeah, again, unless it was coded wrong. I mean, I don't know.
Can we call the bank?
Well, I don't know, Sarah, can you see if you can dig on,
Yeah, I was just asking
OPWC loan?
Angie, so.
Yeah, OPWC loan CM08U. CM08U, it's on page 16 of the actual audit, at the bottom. Yeah. And I appreciate all of you being patient with me as I brought up these issues with the audit, but I feel very strongly that we spent $14,277 of village resident money to have this audit done, and that we need to talk about the findings and fix whatever recommendations they're recommending. So
I agree with you.
so thank you for being patient. We do have one more new business, and that is we did that. We did the resolution. And we did non-cash payments, didn't we? Did we do that already?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have a solicitor. Do we have any other new business, Tim?
Yes, I move that we change the Christmas fund, donation that we created last year, the village, matching up to $2,000 to Bill Motter donation fund. And, also, Mr. Jeff is here. I'd like, because I know for a fact after we bought lights last year, people donated money. How much? And I would like to have a report, and the same thing with the Veterans Memorial. I'm sure there's people still buying bricks. I'd like to see the separation of that. So we definitely,
That's through the CNC.
Yeah, that's not through on the veterans is not through the village.
But where did the Christmas money go? Where did it go?
I know I thought when Angie was here, she had it earmarked as Christmas fund. It didn't just go sloshed in the general fund. It was earmarked in some way.
yeah, according to, yeah, I just like that, because I would like to be reported out. That, if nobody donated, let's say it was $500, then next month it should be $500, it should be $500. And I just like, and it's about the Veterans Memorial, but we should have that report too.
We don't, because that's through the CIC, not through the village.
Okay.
So that's not money the village collects, the CIC
Yeah,
would collect that.
yeah, okay, but we,
What's the CIC? I'm sorry.
Community improvement.
Community Improvement Committee, which Rodney is sorting out right now. So,
okay,
so that would, but it's an entity of 11, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but it's 11 different, folks within, I want to say the school district, business owners, there's, the mayor, a council member, I believe, is supposed to be on that, as well as trustees from, Wayne and Goshen Township, and some other business owners, and when, basically it's a funding source that can be used to, enhance the village and enhance the townships, and it's a way for, I think it's a way for the village and those entities to, if there are large sums of money donated or what have you, can go through that, so it doesn't get earmarked just for the village, it's for the community as a whole. Is that about right, Mayor?
Yes.
But how's our accountability?
They was involved
They're
with
audited
the
as well.
White Memorial Library
Mhm.
when that was
Okay.
taking place.
The
The
veterans,
CIC
yeah.
committee was.
The property that the Veterans Wall is on currently belongs to the CIC. The idea was the CIC, once they had that finished, they would then turn it over to the village, but that's when kind of the wheels fell off the wagon, and currently it's still with the CIC, so the CIC has not turned that over to the village, even though we kind of maintain that property.
Okay.
But they are audited, they're a 501c3, so they are audited through the state. If they have to file taxes or whatever that they normally do annually, I mean, they're a completely separate entity of the village, but the village can utilize the CIC, you know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's a business that wants to relocate into town and there's CIC money that can help them acquire something to enhance their property, then those funds could be potentially used for that to kind of draw them in and give them motivation to come into the village.
Do they get audited too?
Yes, oh yeah, yeah.
Is there any way that, it's Tim's question, is there any way that funding issue, those monies could be shared with what, you know, how that's happening, or is that completely separate there, or?
Separate.
Because I know Tim that was Tim's biggest issue, is
Should we find, I like the idea of doing what you mentioned, but legally, can we have Bill Martin's name on our books with a separate fund? With the
It
state?
should be earmarked, it's not,
Yeah, it would just be.
Okay.
I wouldn't need any different than a park.
Yeah, I'm in favor of, yeah.
Or North-
if
North-
it's
North
possible,
Street.
yeah.
I think Bill would like it though if we included Carolyn's name, that's just my own feelings. But I could be totally wrong, because he donated in the first place in her name, so it's just my thought, and that's.
Yeah, that's good. He was the one that brought it up, and, so why I feel that,
Yeah.
Are you making that a motion?
I just say,
Yes,
should we-
I move, I move.
I'll second that motion of Tim's. We've established a fund, a Christmas light fund with Bill
So-
and Carolyn Martin's name.
We have a motion for a resolution to establish a Christmas decoration fund titled Bill and Carolyn Motter, you want to do it that way?
Yeah.
Bill and Carolyn Motter Christmas Decoration Fund. And we already have, did we? Okay, let's stop there, right, for a second, just so I can clarify. We already have a resolution on the
Yes.
books about the match monies, right?
Yeah.
So we don't need to include any of that, so we can stop there. And Tim's made a first motion to that, and Bob Miller seconded.
Are you gonna do a first reading or gonna pass it?
I still emergency.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay, so let's back up. Well, I know that probably next month, there'll be some monies coming in after Bill and Carolyn's celebration of life on Sunday, so need a motion to suspend the rule.
Just make a motion to suspend the rule of 3 readings and declare emergency, Tim. Do it that way.
Okay, have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Ball,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walty,
Yes.
Weinberger.
Yes.
Now, I need a motion to pass a resolution to establish the Bill and Carolyn Motter Christmas Decoration Fund. Mr. Wolsey,
23-5-2, correct?
23-5-2, resolution 23-5-2.
The 3.
It's 3.
2 was the higher.
That's
Jay
right.
Carter.
It's 3.
Correct.
And has it been seconded?
Mr. Wolsey, first yes, now I need a second.
Yes.
So Deb Ball seconded. I'll have roll call.
Ball,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walty,
Yes.
Weinberger.
Yes.
Any other new business or any business that needs to come before council? If there being none, I would request a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Deb Ball motions to adjourn, and I have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ball, yes, Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wolfe,
Yes.
Weingarten.
Yes.
Oh, we'll sign something. We'll have to sign it. Good Lord, it in. Okay, let's see.
Yes,
Yes,
I know.
Oh, over here.